The Grand Hall of the Galactic Empire's council chamber was a masterpiece of alien architecture, gleaming metallic walls adorned with shimmering insignias, vaulted ceilings etched with luminescent symbols from 1,000 conquered worlds. The space was filled with delegates, each representing a different species, their varied forms casting shadows across the polished floors. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as the last of the council members settled in, all eyes fixed on the central platform where High Chancellor Vicar presided. A figure draped in the dark robes of the Empire called for silence as the council's business commenced, and then a presence silenced the hall. Ambassador Elena Cordain, the representative of humanity, stepped forward, her stride unhurried, every step echoing through the hushed assembly. She wore the simple yet dignified attire of her position, her gaze unwavering as she took in the sea of eyes. Antennae and sensory organs focused solely on her. Standing out in contrast to the alien surroundings, she carried herself with a calm intensity that made the aliens take notice, even those who would normally dismiss her presence. She approached the central platform and paused, allowing the silence to stretch, gathering the room's attention entirely before she began. "Elena Cordain," Chancellor Vicar's voice boomed, dripping with condescension. His serpentine features curled into what could only be described as a sneer. "What urgent plea brings the humans to this council once again?" Elena met his gaze, her eyes fierce but controlled. "High Chancellor, I am not here to plead. I am here to deliver a message from humanity, one that will determine the fate of your empire." A ripple of laughter passed through the council. It was a low, buzzing sound, more felt than heard, but unmistakable in its contempt. Chancellor Vicar's sneer deepened. "A message, you say? And what grand pronouncement does humanity bring to our esteemed assembly today?" Elena's voice was calm, steady, a rock against the waves of derision. "This is your final warning. Withdraw from our territories, release your hold on human colonies, respect the autonomy of our people, or face consequences unlike any you have ever encountered." Another murmur swept through the council, this one tinged with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. A council member from the insectoid Celtari clicked his mandibles in mock laughter, while a crystalline being from the icy worlds of Cryon emitted a series of flickering lights that suggested amusement. Yet, amid the mockery, a few figures shifted uneasily, their eyes narrowing, assessing the human ambassador with new interest. Chancellor Vicar leaned forward, his golden scales glinting under the lights. "Consequences. Human, do you think we are intimidated by your threats? The Galactic Empire spans the known universe. Our fleets number in the tens of thousands. We have crushed rebellions on worlds your kind has never even heard of. What could Earth, a single planet with a handful of colonies, possibly do to concern us?" Elena let a small, cold smile play on her lips. "You assume much, High Chancellor. You assume that humanity is as you've always seen us. Weak, fragmented, insignificant. But times have changed. Humanity has changed." Her words hung in the air, heavier than the council had anticipated. A stillness fell over the assembly as her voice resonated through the grand chamber, reaching every corner. Even the mocking Celtari delegate fell silent, its mandibles clicking uncertainly. Elena continued, her voice growing firmer, each word a hammer striking an invisible nail. "For years we have watched as you expanded your empire, consuming world after world, leaving ruin in your wake. We've seen the devastation wrought on entire species, cultures erased, ecosystems dismantled for your resources. But we are not here to submit, to ask for your mercy or beg for protection. We are here to end the reign of fear you've cast across the stars." Vicar's expression twisted into one of barely contained anger. "You speak as though you could challenge us. Tell me, human, what force does Earth possess that would make you so bold? What delusions of grandeur have filled your minds that you would dare address us in this manner?" The delegates watched her with a mixture of incredulity and fascination, most unwilling to believe, yet drawn to the defiance of her stance. Elena took a slow, deliberate breath, her gaze fixed on the High Chancellor. "Your fleets are vast, yes. Your technology formidable, but you underestimate humanity's will, our resolve to fight for our freedom. We have learned, we have adapted, and we have prepared." From somewhere within the assembly, a voice muttered, "Prepared for what? Suicide?" Elena's gaze flicked in the direction of the voice, unflinching. "Prepared to defend our people at any cost. We may be fewer in number, but we are no less determined. And if you push us further, if you force us into a corner, the losses will be far greater than you expect." For both sides, a tense silence settled over the chamber, the amusement gone, replaced by something darker and more profound. For the first time, some of the council members looked to each other with an edge of doubt, a glimmer of concern flickering in their eyes. High Chancellor Vicar's voice dropped to a dangerous murmur. "You speak of costs and losses, as though you have the power to impose them upon us. Know this, Ambassador Cordain, humanity's time is fleeting. Your kind is fragile, easy to subdue, and easier still to crush. We have tolerated your presence in our domain out of indifference, nothing more." Elena met his glare, undaunted. "Then consider this a shift from your indifference. If you value the worlds under your rule, if you wish to preserve them, then heed this warning. Withdraw from our territories. Return what you have taken, or you will see a side of humanity you cannot anticipate. This is not a threat, Chancellor. It's a promise." A murmur of dissent rose, but it was met with a chilling silence as Elena's words reverberated through the hall. Her gaze swept over the delegates, landing on each alien face with a steely resolve, unwavering in her stance. For a long moment, no one spoke. The council seemed frozen in the grip of something they did not entirely understand, a sense of foreboding perhaps, or the realization that they had crossed a line they could not uncross. Finally, Vicar, his expression unreadable, waved a dismissive hand. "We will consider your request, Ambassador," he sneered. "But do not hold your breath. The Galactic Empire does not bow to threats from upstarts." Elena offered a curt nod, not expecting a different response. She turned, her final words ringing in the silent chamber as she strode away. "Remember my words, Chancellor. This is the only warning you will receive. The next time we meet, it will not be in peace." As she exited, the council members exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of her warning settling in the room long after she had left. In the heart of a distant asteroid field, hidden from the eyes and sensors of the Galactic Empire, a sprawling military command base buzzed with activity. Known as Fortress Alpha, this covert facility had been meticulously constructed over decades, concealed within the asteroid belt's maze-like corridors. Fortified with cutting-edge technology, it served as humanity's command center, the hub from which they would orchestrate their most ambitious plan yet. Fleet Admiral Rajan Kova stood before a massive holographic display, his dark eyes scanning the shifting stars and markers on the galactic map. At his side was Commander Alice Reyes, a seasoned tactician with a reputation for unconventional strategies. Together, they had spearheaded humanity's secret preparations for the day they would finally confront the Empire. Rajan's expression was serious, his usual calm replaced by an electric intensity, as the enormity of the task ahead settled on him. "Commander," Rajan said, his voice low but resonant, "we are officially past the point of no return. Ambassador Cordain's ultimatum has been delivered. If the Empire doesn't withdraw, we go forward with Project Inferno." Alice nodded, her face hardening with resolve. "The council laughed in her face, sir. They don't think we're capable of even posing a threat. As far as they're concerned, we're just another species to be conquered. They'll never see what's coming." Rajan nodded, his gaze unwavering. "That's exactly what we've counted on. Let them mock us. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage." They both turned to the display, which showed the Galactic Empire's expansive territories, with a series of red markers illuminating key military installations, supply depots, and fleet bases. Each red marker represented a target, carefully selected after years of intelligence gathering, espionage, and covert planning. "Let's review the initial strike," Rajan said, gesturing to one of the holographic markers glowing ominously. The image zoomed in, revealing an Empire weapons facility on Tyraxes Prime, a heavily fortified outpost that supplied a significant portion of the Empire's fleets. "The Empire believes Tyraxes Prime is unassailable," Alice remarked, her voice laced with a hint of satisfaction. "Their fleet there is massive, and their defense grid is state-of-the-art. They've concentrated so many resources on protecting it that they've left other key points vulnerable." Rajan grinned slightly. "Precisely. We won't be attacking their defenses head-on. We'll hit them where they least expect it, from within." Alice's eyes glinted as she pulled up additional schematics on the display. "Our operatives have been positioned within the Empire's territories for years, some even working within Empire facilities, maintaining their cover at great personal risk. These sleeper agents have been crucial to gathering intelligence and sabotaging the Empire's systems. Now, with Project Inferno, we're ready to mobilize them." A message alert blinked on the display, and Rajan activated it with a wave of his hand. The holographic face of Major Elias Trent appeared, leader of one of humanity's most elite covert units, stationed deep within Empire space. "Major Trent," Rajan greeted. "Is your team prepared?" "Affirmative, Admiral." Trent's voice was cool and confident. "Our operatives at Tyraxes Prime are in place, awaiting the go-ahead. Once activated, they'll neutralize the defense grid and disrupt communications. The moment the lights go out, our strike team will hit the ground running." "Good," Rajan replied. "Remember, you're not alone out there. Other units are standing by across the Empire's sectors, ready to sow chaos and confusion. Our first strike has to be flawless. We're counting on you and your team, Major." Trent nodded solemnly. "Understood, sir. We won't let you down. When the Empire wakes up to the reality of what humanity can do, it'll be too late for them to respond." With that, Trent's image flickered and disappeared, leaving Rajan and Alice alone with the glowing map. "Phase 1 is set," Rajan said, turning to Alice, "but we need to be ready for their retaliation. The Empire will hit back hard once they realize we're a serious threat. I want our fleets in position around Fortress Alpha. We'll keep our defensive lines tight, draw them in, and minimize civilian risk." Alice nodded. "I've already coordinated with Fleet Command. Our ships are equipped with upgraded cloaking tech, and the outer defense grid is at full capacity. We've fortified supply routes, mobilized reserve forces, and ensured every outpost is prepared. The Empire won't catch us off guard." Rajan watched her with admiration. "You've thought of everything, Commander. They'll underestimate us, and that'll be their undoing." Just then, an alarm sounded, signaling the arrival of a new message. A holographic projection of a young officer appeared. "Admiral Kova, we've received intelligence from the Lyrax sector. The Empire is mobilizing additional fleets, possibly in response to rumors of the ultimatum." Rajan's jaw clenched slightly. "They're moving faster than anticipated. Increase surveillance in the Lyrax sector. I want our ships to shadow them, but avoid direct confrontation. We need to keep our cards hidden until the first strike hits." "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied before vanishing from the display. Alice studied the map, her fingers tapping thoughtfully. "Sir, with all due respect, we should consider what might happen if the Empire realizes the full scope of our capabilities too early. They might attempt to launch a preemptive strike, maybe even a full-scale invasion, before we've destabilized their infrastructure." Rajan turned to her, his expression somber but resolved. "That's a risk we're prepared to take, but we're not the same humanity they faced in the past. If they bring the fight to us, we'll be ready." He activated another display, showing a sleek, darkened fleet of ships, humanity's newest line of stealth cruisers, bristling with advanced weaponry and cloaking technology, developed in secret far from the Empire's gaze. Each ship had been outfitted with technology reverse-engineered from captured Empire vessels, weapons and shielding designed specifically to counter the alien Empire's military tactics. Alice stared at the fleet in awe. Incredible. All these years of research, innovation. It's hard to believe we've kept it all under wraps. "Sacrifices were made," Rajan said quietly, a hint of grief shadowing his features. "Many gave their lives to keep our secrets safe, to gather the knowledge we needed to level the playing field. Now, we honor their memory by seeing this mission through." A moment of silence passed between them, the weight of their responsibility settling heavily. They were on the brink of a war that could alter the fate of the galaxy, a war humanity had spent decades preparing for. Quietly, determinedly, in the shadows. "Commander Reyes," Rajan said at last, his voice filled with conviction, "let the others know that we're moving forward with Project Inferno. I want all sleeper agents activated in 12 hours, synchronized across every sector. When the first strike lands, I want the Empire scrambling, disoriented, forced onto the defensive." Alice's eyes met his, her expression unwavering. "Understood, Admiral. I'll see to it personally." As she left, Rajan looked back at the holographic map, his gaze fixed on the heart of the Empire's territory. For years, humanity had watched the Empire's oppressive regime spread unchecked, its tentacles stretching to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Now, finally, humanity would strike back. This was their moment, their chance to remind the galaxy that even the smallest spark could ignite an inferno that would burn through even the darkest of empires. And the Empire was about to feel the heat. The sun was setting over the distant weapons outpost of Tyraxes Prime, casting long shadows across the barren landscape as the Empire's soldiers and technicians went about their routines, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond their defenses. The outpost, a massive fortress of metal and stone, housed the Empire's largest arsenal in the region, supplying warships and planetary battalions across dozens of sectors. For centuries, the Empire had trusted in its security protocols and its defenses. Tonight, They would be tested in ways they had never anticipated. In the cold depths of space, a fleet of dark, angular human ships glided silently toward the planet, their hulls absorbing and refracting light in a way that rendered them nearly invisible. At the front of the formation was the Phantom, humanity's flagship stealth cruiser, equipped with cloaking technology that the Empire's sensors couldn't detect. Inside, the crew worked with calm precision, their every movement a testament to years of rigorous training. Captain Mira Takari, standing on the bridge of the Phantom, studied the holographic display showing the surface of Tyranny Prime. The outpost appeared as a cluster of blinking lights surrounded by dense security grids. She turned to her operations officer, Lieutenant Kieran Dawson, who was monitoring the countdown. "We're almost in position, Captain," Dawson reported, his voice calm yet focused. "All ships are holding steady, cloaking fields at full capacity. We're still undetected." Mira nodded, her expression unreadable as she weighed the gravity of the mission. "Good. Open a secure channel to Major Trent on the ground." A moment later, the hologram of Major Elias Trent materialized, his face partially obscured by the shadows of his hiding place within the outpost. He looked tense but ready, his gaze sharp and unwavering. "Captain," Trent greeted her, his voice a quiet murmur. "My team is in position. We've planted charges on the main power grid and the shield generators. As soon as we detonate, their defenses will be compromised, and you'll have a clear path." Mira's eyes narrowed with determination. "Understood, Major. We'll initiate our strike as soon as the defenses drop. Remember, timing is everything. Hit them hard, and then pull back to your extraction point. We'll have gunships ready to cover your escape." Trent gave a quick nod. "Copy that, Captain. See you on the other side." The hologram blinked out, and Mira turned her attention back to her crew. "Prepare for the first strike. All ships, ready weapons, and lock on primary targets. The moment their defenses go down, we move in." The countdown ticked away, every second stretching into an eternity. The Phantom hovered silently in orbit, her crew poised and waiting. Finally, the timer hit 0, and a series of explosions erupted across the surface of Tyranny Prime, blinding flashes tearing through the fortress's outer defenses. Within seconds, the outpost's power grid collapsed, plunging the facility into darkness as shield generators flickered and died. "Now!" Mira commanded. "All ships, engage!" The human fleet sprang into action, their ships breaking from formation as they descended upon the planet in a swift, coordinated attack. Laser beams and kinetic rounds tore through the Empire's weakened defenses, the once imposing fortress now vulnerable and exposed. Inside the outpost, chaos reigned. Empire soldiers scrambled to respond, but without power, their automated turrets were offline, their defensive barriers useless. As human strike teams infiltrated the facility, Empire soldiers found themselves hopelessly outmatched by the precision and ferocity of the human forces. Major Trent and his team moved like shadows through the corridors, taking out enemy personnel with silent efficiency. They bypassed locked doors, planted explosives on critical systems, and neutralized high-ranking officers before they could issue countermeasures. Trent's mind was focused, his every move part of a carefully orchestrated plan that had been years in the making. "Bravo team, report," Trent murmured into his communicator as he scanned an empty corridor. A voice crackled back, low and urgent. "Charges set on the munitions depot, Major. Detonation in 3 minutes. Understood. Fall back to the extraction point and wait for my signal." Outside, the Phantom led the assault, its sleek frame weaving between bursts of enemy fire as it rained destruction down upon the fortress. Mira watched the battle unfold, her hand steady on the controls as she directed her crew. "Target their remaining defenses," she ordered, her voice calm but commanding. "Take out any anti-air batteries and secure airspace over the outpost. We're not giving them a chance to regroup." Laser cannons fired from the Phantom, their beams slicing through metal and stone as explosions blossomed across the outpost's remaining defenses. Empire ships attempted to scramble, but their response was disjointed, panicked, their tactical advantage nullified by the unexpected and relentless assault. On the ground, Major Trent's team reached their extraction point, waiting under the cover of debris as the clock ticked down. The explosions from the charges they had planted echoed through the facility, and pillars of smoke rose into the night sky. "Captain, this is Trent. We're ready for extraction," he radioed, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Mira's reply came instantly. "Gunships are en route. Stand by." A few moments later, a trio of human gunships swooped down, their sleek forms slicing through the smoke-filled air as they approached the extraction point. Trent and his team hurried aboard, their faces streaked with dirt and sweat but victorious. As the gunships lifted off, Mira issued the final order. All ships pull back. Mission complete. The fleet withdrew from the outpost, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The Empire's once mighty fortress lay in ruins, its defenders scattered or defeated. As the human ships retreated, a final explosion echoed across the planet, marking the destruction of the munitions depot, a clear and devastating message to the Empire. Back on the bridge of the Phantom, Mira allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction as she surveyed the tactical display, showing Tyranny Prime's defenses collapsing in real time. Status report, she requested, glancing at Lieutenant Dawson. All teams accounted for, Captain, Dawson replied, his voice tinged with a hint of pride. Mission success. The Empire won't be resupplying from Tyranny Prime anytime soon. Mira nodded, her gaze thoughtful as she considered the implications. We've shown them a taste of what we're capable of, but this is only the beginning. As the fleet regrouped and prepared to jump back to Fortress Alpha, a transmission came through from command. Admiral Rajan Kova's face appeared on the screen, his expression stern but clearly satisfied. Excellent work, Captain Takari, he commended. You've struck a critical blow. The Empire will feel this one. Mira straightened, meeting the Admiral's gaze with a firm nod. Thank you, sir. We hit them as planned, but we shouldn't underestimate their response. They'll be coming for us now. Rajan's eyes gleamed with a cold determination. Let them come. We're ready for whatever they throw at us, but for now, regroup and return to base. This was just the first of many strikes to come. We've made our move, and now the Empire knows we're not just a minor threat to be ignored. As the transmission ended, Mira looked back out at the stars, the faint glow of Tyranny Prime fading behind them. As the fleet accelerated into the darkness, humanity had made their presence known in the galaxy, and they had proven that they were not to be underestimated. The first strike had landed, and the Empire would soon realize that their enemy was unlike any they had faced before. The echo of the explosion on Tyranny Prime hadn't even faded before the Empire began to mobilize its forces. Alarms blared across Empire-controlled sectors, red alerts flashing in command centers as news of the attack spread like wildfire. The initial shock was quickly replaced by a burning desire for retaliation, a primal response from a regime unaccustomed to defiance. In the Empire's War Council chamber, High Chancellor Vicar stood seething before a holographic map of the galaxy, his gaze fixed on the distant blue dot that marked Earth. The council members around him shifted uneasily, their faces displaying a mixture of anger and uncertainty. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's invincibility was being challenged, and by a species they had dismissed as insignificant. We cannot let this insult go unpunished, Vicar declared, his voice barely controlled. Humanity has made a grave error in believing they can defy us. They will pay for this insolence. General Threx, a towering figure with crimson scales and piercing yellow eyes, stepped forward. Known for his ruthless tactics, he was the Empire's most feared military strategist. High Chancellor, I have already begun mobilizing our forces, he reported, his voice a deep rumble. Our fleets will be dispatched to every human-controlled sector. We will crush them with overwhelming force. Vicar nodded, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. See that it is done, General. These humans will learn the price of challenging the Empire. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, humanity's defense fleets were already mobilizing. On the bridge of the flagship Intrepid, Admiral Rajan Kova watched as his fleet gathered in formation, the ships gleaming in the darkness of space. Though they were outnumbered by the Empire's armadas, each vessel was equipped with the latest in stealth technology and weaponry, designed specifically to counter the Empire's tactics. Commander Alice Reyes joined him on the bridge, her expression tense but resolute. The Empire's fleets are converging on our outer colonies, Admiral, she reported. They've dispatched forces to every human sector. They're trying to overwhelm us with sheer numbers. Rajan nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic display. They think they can intimidate us into submission. They're used to species folding under their might, but we're not going to back down. He took a deep breath, his expression hardening. Prepare all fleets. We'll meet them head-on. Humanity will hold its ground. Alice didn't waver. Our forces are positioned across key sectors, sir. We've fortified defensive lines, and every pilot and soldier is ready. They know what's at stake. Rajan's voice softened, just slightly. We're fighting not just for survival, but for the right to exist freely. These aren't just colonies. They're our homes. Our people. We're going to protect them with everything we have. Across the human-controlled sectors, battles erupted as the Empire's fleets descended like a swarm, their ships blotting out the stars. The air was thick with tension, and the skies lit up with explosions as the two forces clashed. Human ships, smaller and more agile, darted between the Empire's larger vessels, using the element of surprise to their advantage. On the surface of New Dawn Colony, a young pilot named Lieutenant Erin Mason gripped the controls of her fighter, her heart pounding as she watched the massive Empire battleships looming on the horizon. She had trained for this moment for years, but facing the Empire's armada in real combat was another matter entirely. "Stay focused, Erin," came the steady voice of her squadron leader, Captain Jax Torres. "Remember your training. We hit them fast, stay out of their line of fire, and aim for weak points. They may be bigger, but we're quicker." Erin nodded, swallowing her fear. "Understood, Captain. Let's give them something to remember." The squadron moved as one, swooping down toward the enemy fleet, their fighters weaving between bursts of enemy fire. The Empire's larger ships struggled to keep up with the humans' nimble maneuvers, their turrets swinging clumsily as the human fighters danced around them, firing precision shots at their weak points. As explosions rocked the skies above New Dawn Colony, the people on the ground watched with a mixture of fear and awe. They had heard stories of the Empire's brutal tactics, of worlds conquered and cultures erased. But now, for the first time, they were witnessing their own forces fight back, refusing to bow to the oppressive power that had terrorized the galaxy for so long. Back on the Intrepid, Admiral Kova's command center was a hive of activity, officers calling out updates and adjusting tactical displays as the battle raged on. Rajan's gaze was steely, his mind racing as he analyzed the unfolding events. The Empire's forces were formidable, but he could see gaps in their formation, weaknesses that humanity could exploit. "Bring up the kinetic bombardment system," Rajan ordered. "We'll give them something they won't see coming." The Intrepid's advanced targeting system locked onto the Empire's flagship, a colossal vessel bristling with weapons and shields. But the kinetic bombardment system was something new, a weapon developed in secret, capable of unleashing devastating projectiles with pinpoint accuracy. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, the weapons officer announced. A massive projectile launched from the Intrepid, hurtling through space at unimaginable speed. It struck the Empire's flagship with a thunderous impact, tearing through its shields and armor in a shower of debris. The Empire's ship listed to one side, fires erupting across its hull as it began to drift. A cheer went up across the Intrepid's bridge, a moment of triumph in the midst of the chaos. But Rajan remained focused, his gaze never wavering. "Keep up the pressure," he commanded. "We have to push them back from every colony." On New Dawn Colony, Lieutenant Mason and her squadron continued their assault, diving between Empire cruisers and delivering strike after strike. She could feel the intensity of the battle all around her, but something inside her had shifted. She was no longer afraid. She was fighting for her home, for her family, and for every colony the Empire had threatened. "Squadron, fall back to the ground defenses," Captain Torres ordered. "We've got a new wave coming in, and they're bringing reinforcements." Erin pulled her fighter around, rejoining her squadron as they fell back toward the planet's surface. Empire ships descended, their massive frames casting long shadows as they prepared for a ground assault. But the humans were ready. As the Empire's troops began their approach, ground cannons activated, firing a barrage of artillery that tore through the enemy lines. Human soldiers, outfitted with exosuits and armed with energy weapons, held their ground with unyielding resolve. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on every colony under siege. Despite being outnumbered, humanity's forces held firm, using their superior tactics and advanced technology to counter the Empire's brute force. Rajan's strategy was simple, yet effective. Focus on defense, make every strike count, and never give the Empire a foothold. Hours into the battle, the Empire's fleet was beginning to falter. They had come expecting an easy victory, but humanity's resistance was far stronger than they had anticipated. Forced to regroup, the Empire's commanders ordered a reluctant retreat, their ships withdrawing from human territory, battered and bloodied. As the last of the Empire's ships vanished into the distance, a quiet sense of triumph settled over the human forces. They had held the line. They had stood against the might of the Empire and emerged unbroken. On the Intrepid, Admiral Kova looked at Commander Reyes, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "They thought we were weak, easy to crush. Today, we showed them that humanity will not be conquered." Reyes nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "This is only the beginning, Admiral. We've proven we can stand our ground. Now it's time to take the fight to them." The Galactic Empire's War Council chamber was shrouded in a heavy silence. High Chancellor Vicar sat at the head of the table, his gaze fixed on the reports of their failed assault on humanity's colonies. Beside him, General Threx stood motionless, His crimson-scaled face twisted with anger and disbelief. The reports were damning. Human forces, though smaller and technologically inferior by Empire standards, had not only withstood the Empire's assault, but had forced their fleets into a costly retreat. It was a humiliation that the Empire had never before faced. "They made fools of us," Vikar growled, his voice low with rage. "The humans should have been crushed by now, begging for our mercy." A murmur of agreement swept through the council. But it was tinged with something new: fear. The humans had defied expectations, defying every tactic the Empire had thrown at them. And now, rumors were spreading through the Empire's outer territories, whispers of humanity's resilience, and the possibility of rebellion among the Empire's oppressed worlds. As the High Chancellor stewed in his fury, a holographic transmission activated in the center of the room. A figure appeared, a woman in her late 30s. Her expression calm, yet unyielding. Ambassador Elena Cordain stood before them once more, her presence an unspoken challenge. "High Chancellor Vikar," she greeted, her tone formal yet laced with quiet defiance. "I trust you now understand the gravity of the situation." Vikar's eyes narrowed. "You are bold to appear before us again, Ambassador. I assume you're here to gloat?" Elena's gaze didn't falter. "Not to gloat, Chancellor. To deliver humanity's final message to the Empire." A few of the council members exchanged uneasy glances, and General Threx clenched his jaw, barely restraining his anger. But Elena's voice was steady, unaffected by their hostility. "The Empire has had its chance to withdraw peacefully," she continued. "We warned you, yet you chose to disregard that warning. You underestimated us, believing humanity was too weak, too primitive to pose a threat. You were wrong." Vikar scoffed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You may have won a few skirmishes, but you cannot withstand the full might of the Empire. We will destroy you, Ambassador, and everything you hold dear." Elena allowed a brief, faint smile. "Perhaps you should consider why your forces failed, Chancellor. You've grown complacent, arrogant, ruling through fear and domination. But humanity is not like the others you've oppressed. We value our freedom above all else, and we are prepared to defend it at any cost." General Threx's fists tightened. "You threaten us with destruction as though you hold some power over us. You're nothing but a nuisance, an upstart species on the fringes of the galaxy." Elena's expression hardened. "Then you fail to see the truth, General. Humanity is not alone. We have allies in your territories, species who have long suffered under your rule, who now look to us as a symbol of resistance." The words hung in the air, a challenge that unsettled even the most stalwart council members. Vikar's eyes flickered with a rare vulnerability as he scanned the room, noticing the unease on his advisors' faces. Elena's words carried weight, an unspoken threat that resonated beyond the immediate battle. "What is your purpose in contacting us, Ambassador?" Vikar demanded, his voice losing its usual edge. "To make our position clear," she replied, "humanity does not seek to conquer, to dominate, or to oppress. We fight for freedom, not just for ourselves, but for every species under your rule. This is your final warning, High Chancellor. Withdraw from our territories, relinquish your control over our colonies, and cease your campaigns of oppression, or we will bring fire to your worlds." A stunned silence filled the chamber as the council processed her words. Her tone was calm, but there was an underlying certainty in her gaze, a promise that could not be dismissed. Vikar's composure cracked, his fury breaking through. "You dare threaten us with annihilation? Do you not realize the consequences of such arrogance?" Elena's eyes met his, unflinching. "This is not a threat, Chancellor. It is a promise. We are willing to make sacrifices you cannot fathom. We will burn if it means taking your empire down with us." For the first time, a flicker of doubt appeared in Vikar's gaze. The Empire had always ruled through intimidation, relying on the belief that no species would dare resist. But humanity's defiance was different, their resolve unbreakable. In that moment, he understood that he faced an enemy that would not submit no matter the cost. Before he could respond, the transmission ended, leaving the council in a thick, suffocating silence. Back on Fortress Alpha, Elena stepped away from the hologram projector, her shoulders slumping slightly as the weight of the message settled over her. She turned to Admiral Rajan Kova and Commander Alice Reyes, who had watched the exchange in silence. "It's done," Elena said, her voice barely a whisper. "They know what's coming." Rajan nodded, his expression grave. "And they know we won't back down." Alice placed a hand on Elena's shoulder, her face a mixture of pride and sympathy. "You did what had to be done. They needed to hear it from a human." Elena managed a weak smile, her eyes reflecting a hint of sadness. "I hope they understand that we don't want war, but if they push us, we'll fight with everything we have." The three of them stood in silence, each of them fully aware of the consequences that would follow. They had thrown down the gauntlet, and now it was only a matter of time before the Empire responded. But this time, humanity would be ready. Across the galaxy, human fleets mobilized, their engines humming as they prepared for the inevitable. Pilots, soldiers, and commanders steeled themselves, knowing that the battle ahead would determine the fate of countless lives. For the first time, humanity was not fighting alone. Rebellions simmered on worlds within the Empire's borders, inspired by humanity's defiance, waiting for the right moment to rise up. The Empire was no longer a faceless juggernaut. It was an enemy with weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and a growing number of allies turning against it. Humanity had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible, that even the mightiest empires could fall. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Admiral Kova watched the stars, his expression thoughtful. "It's strange, isn't it?" he murmured to Alice. "All our lives we believed the Empire was untouchable, and now here we are, preparing to take the fight to them." Alice smiled faintly. "We've come a long way, Admiral. We've proven that humanity is stronger than they thought. Whatever happens next, we've already changed the galaxy." Rajan nodded, his gaze unwavering. "And we'll keep changing it as long as we have to. For our people, for every species under their control." As the human fleets drifted toward the Empire's heart, a message echoed across the stars, a final reminder that humanity would not be silenced. They would stand, fight, and endure, no matter the cost. And as long as they had breath in their lungs, they would carry their final message into every corner of the galaxy. "Your worlds will burn if you dare to test the resolve of humanity." With that promise ringing through the cosmos, humanity's forces surged forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They had delivered their final warning. Now, it was up to the Empire to decide their fate.